Welcome, book lovers, to the very first episode of The Bookish Spell. I'm your host, Angie, and I'm so excited to finally launch this podcast. If you're here, it's because you love books just as much as I do, and you're ready to dive into some magical stories, intriguing characters, and of course, all the latest buzz from the TikTok community. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm a passionate reader, writer, and someone who believes in the magic that books bring to our lives. In this podcast, we're going to explore everything from in-depth book reviews to the latest trends on Book Talk, and I'll be sharing my thoughts on the books I'm reading along the way. Every episode will be filled with insights, book reviews, and a little bit of magic. Whether you're a seasoned reader or just dipping your toes into the world of books, there's something here for everyone. So grab your favorite cozy spot, maybe a cup of tea, and let's embark on this literary journey together. For this first episode, I'm starting with a book that has completely enchanted me. It's Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. If you've been anywhere near Book Talk recently, you've probably seen this book making waves. And let me tell you, the hype is real. Stick around, because I'll be sharing my thoughts, a few of my favorite moments, and why this book left me on a serious book hangover. But before we dive into the review, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. Whether you're a fellow book talk enthusiast or just someone who loves a good story, I'm glad you're here. So, this book for me wasn't just a read. It was like an experience. One that kept me up all night, flipping pages with wide eyes and a racing heart. If you ever experienced a book hangover where no other story quite satisfies after finishing one, then you'll know exactly how I feel about this one. So let's dive in. First off, my review. It's definitely a 5 stars, without a doubt. I absolutely love the plot, the richly woven story, and the vibrant characters, of course. And then there's the magical environment of the dragons. Let me tell you, it's everything you could want in a fantasy world. But what truly kept me glued to this book was Violet and her love interest, Xaden Rorinson. And I'm sure many of you will agree with me on this. It was the best part of the book. So let's talk about the romance, because I think everyone who's read Fourth Wing has been buzzing about it. It's not just a subplot, it's an integral part of the story that adds depth and tension to every scene. The chemistry between Violet and Xaden is electric, the kind that makes your heart race and keeps you thinking about the characters long after you close the book. Kind of makes you feel 17 again. What I love most about the romance in Fourth Wing is just how magical it feels. I mean, let's be realistic here. The love interaction between Violet and Xaden is every girl's fantasy. But it's not just there for the sake of having a love story. I love how it's woven into a fabric of the characters' growth, the challenges they face, and let's be honest, who doesn't love a slow burn romance set against the backdrop of a world filled with dragons and danger? I mean, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the romance in the book, but I feel like it's what carried it. I personally loved the fact that Xaden was there in a comforting way, like he made Violet feel safe and secure. But he also gave her the confidence that she needed. Because from my point of view and reading the book, Violet always gave me a very Harry Potter esque type energy, like a weakling, as much as she's described in the book. And I loved how Xaden was able to bring out her inner strength and her growth that she made with him, like just being a more independent, stronger person. I feel like that is what made the romance so captivating. That it wasn't solely about the attraction they had for each other, it was how they both created that yin yang for one another, balancing out each other's negative and positive. Xaden being able to give Violet that courage that she needed to believe in herself, while Violet was the one softening Xaden's edges to not always be in fight or flight mode. It was simply magical. Is probably the best words I can use to describe it. I do just want to note that I am currently reading Iron Flame, so that will be next week's episode. But what I want to note is that reading Fourth Wing, and as Violet got off the parapet, or actually before, I believe it was before she got on the parapet, um, and she locked eyes with Xaden, that in that very moment was when I knew, like, this is going to be a good love story. So let me know in the comments if any of you thought that as well. So I haven't read a book that gave me a hangover like this in a long time. I believe the last time I had a book hangover was when I read Divine Rivals duology. So it was Divine Rivals and Rootless Vows. I read that at like the end of last year in 2023, and I'll do a whole other episode on that. But the romance in that duology of Divine Rivals is almost like mere child's play compared to Fourth Wing, if you know what I mean. But with Fourth Wing, it gives you that feeling when you finish a book and you're just not ready to leave the world behind. That's very much how I felt with Fourth Wing. It pulls you in so deeply that when it's over, you find yourself yearning for more. Definitely more Xaden, as I'm sure we all are. And for those of you thinking about diving into fantasy, this book I do say is probably the perfect choice. It's what I call a medium level fantasy. It's not too complex. So if you're just dipping your toes into the genre, it's a great starting point. The world building is rich but accessible, and the story is driven by characters and emotions that feel kind of real and relatable. So if, so let's talk about Dane as we're on the topic of real and relatable. In the beginning of Fourth Wing, the hype that Violet gave Dane was just so good, to like where I just couldn't wait to meet him in the book, if that makes sense. And like I loved it so much. And I'm like, okay, great. She grew up, they're older now, they're gonna be together, and it's gonna be this big romantic relationship of childhood friends. And then bam, Rebecca Yarros hits us with that Xaden, and everything's different now. But I really was like at the beginning of the book, and how she was talking about him was so refreshing. Definitely different than I'm sure what we're all used to, because most of these love triangle books have like a Twilight, similar to Twilight, or this one specifically, Fourth Wing, reminds me of Vampire Diaries. Definitely with the good guy that does the right thing, and then the morally gray character that is willing to explode the world for the love of his life, which I guess us as women, that's what we all want. But I was kind of like, just like reading it at the beginning, it kind of felt refreshing. Like, oh, okay, this may go in a different direction, that we're actually going to see the nice guy win, because realistically speaking, in these type of love triangles, the nice guy never wins. They always end up just being with somebody else and finding their happiness elsewhere, you know? So I was kind of wanting that to happen, but now with like Zayden in the picture, I'm definitely happy with the way things are. Um, and really upset with the outcome of Dane and what kind of backstabber he turned out to be. That as we progress through the book and we get to the part where he stole Violet's memories and he felt like a traitor. And yeah, he was a traitor to Violet, but he also, in his mind, he thinks he's doing the right thing as they're fighting for their land or country and whatever they're going through. He's technically like the good guy. He thinks he's fighting for the right side of the team. Um, and I just didn't like that. Like in some ways, it made me view Dane as a coward, and that's probably the only word I have for him. Is right now, I view him as a coward. Well, in Fourth Wing, I'm currently reading Iron Flame, so I kind of have different views. I also didn't like how he treated Violet once she got there to the school or whatever you want to call it. College. Essentially, it's like a college. Um, I didn't like how he just, like, she crossed the parapet and she's surviving, there with all these people who have trained all of their lives to be there. And she basically trained to be a scribe. Um, so she was, out of her comfort zone and didn't really know much or what to expect, but she was surviving regardless. And I just didn't like that he belittled her and tried to make her like not believe in herself or not have faith in herself instead of being like Zayden, where Zayden was like, lifting her up and teaching her how to survive. Dane wanted her to run and hide like a little mouse, which I hated so much in a book, and it was just so cringy for me. It was not cute. There was nothing about that I liked it when he just didn't, believe in her, have faith in her, and just was scared that every waking moment she was going to die, which, she could have. But if it wasn't for Zayden teaching her to become stronger and to take care of herself, because, whether it's in a book, a movie, or in real life, you can't expect someone to take care of you, you know? So I didn't like that either. And that's very well why I'm definitely Team Zayden. Because he, you know, taught her to become a better person, a stronger person, to not have fear. Well, Dane just kind of like tried to enhance her fears even more. And he was just bringing her down. I did not like it. Like, from one perspective, it looked like he really loved her and he just wants to keep her safe. But then when you guys dated in the picture, it makes you think like, well, if Dane really loved her, he would teach her the ropes rather than eventually just watching her die. I mean, she didn't die for those who haven't read the book, but I'm going to mark this as spoilers regardless. I don't know. So that's my view on Dane. I'm not his biggest fan at the moment, but as I'm reading Iron Flame currently, we'll see what my review is for next episode. But I do want to talk about Violet, like her love of being a scribe and how that's what she trained for and that's what she thought she was going to do. And a scribe is simply a person in this timeline that keeps records and documents everything that goes on in their land. And that is what she wanted to do. Her love of books and bookkeeping and writing and recording everything. I feel like it actually became an advantage for her being in the writer's squad. Because now she has the upper hand over other writers. She not only became a badass writer, dragon writer, she also has the knowledge of a scribe, which is like chef's kiss for me, and like good job with the storyline, Rebecca Yarros, because it's absolutely amazing. Um, Getting back to like her being a scribe and talking about like what they're going through in their little country. I forget how to pronounce the land. I mean, even if I had the words in front of me, I probably wouldn't know how to pronounce it anyways. Um, but I do like, yes, we love the story, the romance, and that's what a lot of us fixate on is the romance. The dragons, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. The dragons are an amazing piece to the whole story. But I do also want to shed a little bit light on the actual storyline of what they're fighting for and how it is actually really interesting. Like, I feel like if you take the romance aspect out of the book, the story of what their, I guess, essentially government is doing is very interesting. How they're keeping secrets and hiding, and there's records missing, and there's things being said and people believing one thing while something else is actually happening, and how all this time we're reading thinking that this is the right side of the playing field, and then we quickly discover that the people who are frowned upon are considered the bad guys, quote unquote, are actually the ones that you want to win, um, which kind of makes me reflect on our country today, that not everything is what it may seem. And I'm sure some of us, if not all of us, has been through a situation like that, being fooled, thinking that something was good for us and had good intentions for us, no matter what it may have been, and realized how it's completely false, or realizing that it's a total lie of something that you believed all of your life. I feel like that in itself is really relatable into the story, which does help with building a connection. Um, so yeah, the storyline or the plot actually could, in my opinion, I feel can carry itself without the romance. The romance is just a plus, and I'm actually looking really forward to seeing this turn into what is it, a TV show? I believe you're turning Fourth Wing into, because I feel like it would be an amazing TV show. So I do want to talk about Violet's two friends. Well, as we progress through the book, she made quite a few friends, but her like main friend, which is Rhiannon, I believe how you pronounce her name, Rhiannon. It's the her best friend. It's the girl at the beginning of the book that she gave one of her boots to, so she doesn't fall off the parapet. Her and Riddick, maybe it's Riddick, the guy who's her friend too. So it's like this little trio. Those two friends give me, and I said this from the beginning, they give me like mean girl vibes. Like, in Mean Girls, Lindsay Lohan's two friends, the guy and the girl, I forget their names. Shoot. But that's what they remind me of so much. Like when I'm reading the book, I was laughing every time there was an interaction with her two friends because it just reminded me of them so much. And just like reading it, and you start to visualize the characters in this setting. Like I visualize those people as their characters, like Roddick, I think it's Riddick. Um, I visualize like that little, chubby guy that dresses funny as him, and the girl in Mean Girls that has like the funky black hair. I visualized the other friend like that. Like that's just who I like. That's who they reminded me of a lot, and I love them. I love Violet's little friend group. It is so freaking adorable. And another character that I do want to, I feel should get a little space on this segment here is Jack Barlow. I'm calling it. I'm not that far into Iron Flame, so I'll let you guys know in the next episode. But I am calling it Jack Barlow did not die. And the reason why I think he hasn't died, because I was waiting through the entire book of Fourth Wing. They never called his name. You know, like how in the meeting hall or great hall, where they go and have breakfast or the meetings or whatever in the morning, and then like they would call out the names of the people, the writers who died. His name never was called, but Rebecca Yarros is really slick with this because there was so much going on during that time when Violet killed Jack that it's almost like you wasn't, just the way she read it out, there was just so much going on that there was no time to have that little piece of where they meet in the hall and the names of the cadets or writers that passed away, they read it out. But me being me, and I pay attention to every little freaking detail, I was waiting. I waited and I waited. That entire book, there was no mention of him dying, nobody looking for him, nobody said anything about Jack. Like they never announced his death. So I firmly believe this kid is still alive. So we're going to find out. Because that's something that's still standing out to me with Jack Barlow, which I despise. And I do want to note that when Liam died, I sobbed like a baby. He was one of my favorite characters in the book. He reminded me of somebody else, which was I forget his name. Oh my goodness. It was in one of the Harry Potter books. He was in the movie. It was like a young little kid, and he loved Harry Potter, and like he used to follow Harry Potter around. Oh goodness, I forgot his name. I'm gonna have to like research it. But he reminded me of that little blonde-haired kid that was in one of the Harry Potter movies. But I actually think he ended up dying in the movie. And he almost like wanted to be like a news reporter, I believe, or he just wanted, he just loved Harry Potter. He was like a big fan of Harry. And that's the energy of that like really bubbly, high energetic character that Liam gave me. And he was just so sweet and grateful is probably the best word. He was so grateful for everything he has and everything that Zayden done for him, and that I like sobbed when he died. That was a traumatic part for me in the book. It really was. I don't think there's any other characters that I really care to discuss. Like, I mean, I'm sure we all could agree on this. Everyone hates Violet's mom. Everyone, I'm sure, is a little curious about her dad. So I kind of hope we get to find out more about him before he died. Because I am curious, because I feel like he's keeping a lot of secrets, or kept a lot of secrets, excuse me. Her sister falls a little flat in the book, which is okay. I just feel like there's nothing really special to her character. It's almost like she's just a placeholder. I guess before we talk about dragons, we are going to talk about Violet's brother and the ending of Fourth Wing. Lord, oh Lord, let me tell you, Fourth Wing was an amazing book, amazing story, amazing characters, amazing romance. The emotional roller coaster that this book put me on was not normal. There are so many times that I gasped, I shut my book, I'm punching pillows, I'm looking for the closest, the innocent bystanders to grab and shake and scream over all these like events that took place in just a short amount of time. I mean, it's an average length size of a book, but there was definitely a lot. And that's something else I want to say about Fort Wing, especially for it to be the first book in a series. A lot happened, Especially, because when there's books and there are multiple books in a series, sometimes the stories fall a little flat because there's like so much to tell, and there's this, you can only fit so much in one book. This book, Rebecca Yarros done really well writing it the same way J.K. Rowling done with Harry Potter. Like, there was always enough events that kept each book intriguing. So I want to say there was a lot of events that took place in Fourth Wing that was just so freaking good. The ending, finding out that Brennan, I believe his name is Brennan. Yeah, Brennan was alive, was holy freaking hell. My jaw hit the floor. It hit the floor. It freaked the hell out of me. I was screaming. Like, I literally screamed. So that was my input on finding out Brennan is still alive. And it wasn't like, not that, like, just because he was alive. It's just the way it unfolded is what was amazing for me. And how Xaden knew he was alive. And how Brennan is working for, like, Xaden's side. And that, and just ties in back to the storyline, the plot, that the team that we believe is good is so wrong. And it just wants to control everybody. I don't know. It was really good. I enjoyed that part. Okay, last but not least, the dragons. So, as we all know, this part also reminds me of excuse me, of Harry Potter. Violet ends up being something really special, and she unexpectedly bonds not only with one dragon, but two dragons. One of them, in which is an adolescent that she wasn't supposed to be bonding to, but that just shows how pure her heart is and how much faith and trust they have in her, knowing that she's going to make a difference, which I love in the book. Like, really well played, Rebecca Yarros, amazing. The dragon scene where Violet bonds with the two dragons, I feel, was one of the greatest parts of the book. Because at that moment that took place, especially when she bonded with the young dragon, it was like, okay, you're hooked. And like, now like, oh, something is happening. And it like really almost felt serious. And now you're just really interested in what more is actually taking place aside from Violet and Xaden. It helps you kind of stay on track, because clearly we all got really lost into romance. And I feel like the dragon part, when Violet bonded with the two dragons, was a turning point for a lot of people. I've know some people who are not fantasy readers and are reading Fourth Wing or read Fourth Wing, and that part of the dragon bonding is what hooked them as well to know what happens. So again, well played, Rebecca Yarros. Like, you have written this book exquisitely. It's amazing. Because the book has all of the aspects of a lot of other very well known books and movies, like Harry Potter and Vampire Diaries, Mean Girls. It just gives like, it's almost like, because I'm pretty sure me and Rebecca Yarros is the same age. It's almost like she just took bits and pieces of everything that we loved and were obsessed with growing up, and created her own world out of it. I just can't say enough good things about Fourth Wing. I'm currently reading Iron Flame, so the next episode will be about that. I'm also very excited for the third book in the series, Onyx Storm. So I want to thank you for joining me today on the Bookish Spell. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're loving the podcast, leave a review. It really helps. Until next time, Keep the magic alive in your hearts and on your bookshelves.